Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and I thank you for joining us again here on the program. I think you're going to enjoy this program. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be fun. And it's going to be with a gentleman who, for the first time on this program, is going to share with us his insights into, I'm going to call it this way, interplanetary connections. We are all connected, whether it be human to human, human to animal, flora and fauna, and we're connected there, or the universe. And you've heard me say it many times. It is the height of arrogance of mankind to think that he, she, it is the only living sentient being in the universe. I believe there are others out there. And quite honestly, if the mothership were coming, and I've said this many times, take me away, okay? I want to experience something different than the stupidity that is experienced on this planet, and I hope I'm not contributing to it. Our very special guest today is Toni Ghazi. He is known as the Antarean-Heart, who is a channel and a spiritual guide, and he works through the Praying-Mantis Beings and the Antares Stargate, which I am very curious to talk to him about, to bring messages of unconditional love and integration from interdimensional and extraterrestrial beings. Toni, thank you so much for joining us. Is that how you prefer to be addressed, as Toni?
Yes, totally. I'm so
Oh,
human. Please call me Tony. Thank you,
you
Richard,
got
for
it.
having me here and for this beautiful introduction. I'm super excited to connect with you and your audience and see what the universe has for us. And I love how you introduced the whole, like how began this with speaking that we are interconnected, because we always have been, we always are, we are never, ever disconnected. It's only an illusion of disconnection to allow us to experience something different.
Yeah.
Um, but I'll stop there until, and,
Well,
and I'll
and,
let you lead.
and I'll throw that out even further and say that, and this is going to be hard for others to comprehend.
Yeah.
All right. We here on this planet right now, and we here in this country right now, we are going through a rather tumultuous political event. And I want to keep it, you know, in that context. And that there are those who do not believe. There is no way on earth, in heaven or hell, that I am connected to those people on the other side of the aisle. No way, because they think that they're so stupid and they're so ignorant and they're so this and they're so that and da 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 da. Da. And help us to understand this better, Toni. And the reality is that whether you like it or not, they are you and you are they. It's we. So please help us to, if necessary, put a finer point on it, but then to elucidate that it's okay to recognize this. As a matter of fact, that might even help us as individuals and as a society to raise the consciousness even just a little bit, to say, wait a minute, what are we doing? Why are we doing this when we could be doing that over there that would actually raise us up?
Yes. Look, thank you so much for actually like bringing this up, because um, I've been called to go on the path also of coaching like the corporate world. And I've been getting images, I've been getting all these things that are just manifesting. And I keep thinking, how am I going to speak to people that are, aren't as awakened, are still in the three-dimensional? Where do I begin to kind of allow them just to appreciate and absorb the information? Because oftentimes just hearing what you said brings a wall, like, absolutely not, you're crazy, and they're just not ready for it.
Mhm.
And I almost feel like I'm going to go into a semi-channeling state. And by the way, I've always I have always struggled with stuttering, like since I
Mhm.
was a child. All my life, I was like a prisoner of my own throat. But when I channel, the stuttering goes away, which it was my proof that I'm channeling, because I know I've been a prisoner and I still am of my speech, like the words don't come out and I become like it just wouldn't come out.
Hmm.
So I use the word and I use the word like to kind of help me transition. And if I don't, it just like the word doesn't come out. But I really feel like I need I may go a little bit into the channeling state just to allow people to understand how the mantis beings kind of explain it. And as I'm speaking, a lot of energies will be also traveling into the ether, into their beingness, to allow them to awaken certain parts of their psyche that they perhaps are not aware of. If that's okay.
Hmm.
If that's okay.
And before you go into any of this,
Yeah,
let's talk about
sure.
the praying mantis. And I don't know if I want to say the praying mantis people
Yeah.
or entities or how to describe them. So let's start there with who are they? Where are they? And what is their collective life's purpose, especially as they come through you?
Yeah, so look, I have gotten to know them as being energy beings, and truly we're all energy beings, right? This costume of like being human or of being like the praying mantis is really, in a sense, a facet like for us to wear to experience our life like from that perspective. When they came through initially through a past life regression, they showed me like their head. It was a very clear knowingness and clear image. The next image, they showed me this long body silhouette of like 20 feet high of this pure light bodies. But also like there was a knowingness, and I'm getting chills all over my body right now. There was a knowingness as like they came in as this light body that we need to come in the silhouette of a human form that's long, because your mind isn't able to really comprehend the unlimited, like the beyond. So
Mhm.
they needed to they like needed to choose an archetype in order like for my brain to understand what I'm witnessing. But there's a lot of knowingness like within it, and they're really involved on a very in like look, I have chills, and hold on, let me show,
I
I'll
see
show you for a
that.
second.
Yeah.
Uh,
Goosebumps, folks. He's getting chills and the hair standing up
all
on his arm there.
here, there you go, all
Yeah.
over.
Hmm.
Um, they're very intertwined with the fabric of the universe. They're really, and look, our awareness, the way that I'm like, we're taught that like we see the world this way, that we think this way, that life is this way, the stars look that way. They see it from a very multidimensional aspect, almost as if they have infinite eyes and they're seeing everything at once. Yet they can focus on one thing at a time if they want to, but still be aware of every. It's like a massive supercomputer of like consciousness. This is
Hmm.
how they really are. They assist many beings all across the folds of the universes in like different dimensions and in parallel like realities in the ascension process. They really are, I would say, like the architects of the universe. They're, and like some people call them like the founders, but like not the founders in like the sense they're the highest um of like a ladder type height, like you're high and you're low, because like they don't see it that way,
Hmm.
but they're quite high in the sense they're very expanded, right? So our view and our life is very narrow. It's very laser focused on this life. They have a very wide lens and they see everything at once, but like yet they can experience a laser focused experience. That's the best way that I can describe it in words, because like when I go into like the channeling state, they allow me to experience their world, but my mind cannot describe what I'm seeing. It's just
Right.
so vast, and the words that we use are so limited.
Mm.
So like they do their best, right? And this is why when like people channel, it's beyond the words that you hear. There's a lot of energies. There are a lot of light codes that come in that kind of help your ether and like your aura and like your energy code to understand it on a conscious level, a consciousness level, and like versus like the brain level, right? Because like
Hmm.
the brain is very limited and it's really designed to keep you in the matrix. It's super limited, and it's like designed to work in the limited, in a sense, format, not in the unlimited and infinite format.
Right.
um does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Would you say though that because you use the term matrix,
Yeah.
the matrix does serve a purpose? I
Everything
mean,
serves a purpose.
yeah. I mean, we watched the movie, whether it's, I can't remember, it's two or three thus far.
Sure.
And they go in and out of, from one realm to another, one reality to another, and so forth.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, you have to, figure out, okay, well, which reality would you rather live in, and kind of coexist and get along and just kind of flow through, and I think about that going, okay, I understand the whole aspect, although I never did understand fully the pill, the red or the blue pill. It's like, okay, which one was I supposed to take? What did my doctor say? And what
Totally.
is it supposed to alleviate? What ails me? And
Sure.
so I should be better.
Yeah.
But I also remember an episode from Star Trek Next Generation where they were dealing with Sherlock Holmes' nemesis, Moriarty. And at the end of the episode, Data, the android, is holding this box that has terabyte after terabyte of space. And it allows Moriarty and his girlfriend to travel the universe within that box. So and of course, they were using the holodecks in this process to so to speak, capture Moriarty. And at the end of the episode, the last words of that episode, Data kind of looks up or out as to look for the entity that is the creator, if you will, and say, computer, end program. And I sometimes wonder, because I think about this, part of what I shared with earlier was your bringing forth unconditional love. And I find there are illogic inconsistencies with some of the philosophies on the planet today, specifically what I was raised in, broadly Christianity, more specific Catholicism. And we talk about this concept of unconditional love. And I remember watching the movie Noah's Ark with Russell Crowe, and watching that, and then we watched the one about Moses and so forth, more modern ones as opposed to the Cecil B. DeMille's.
Sure.
But also thinking about the concept of unconditional love, and reading, of course, in the New Testament, "For God so loved the world," and I'm thinking, okay, for God so loved the world, we'll stop right there. End of story. God loved us, created us. The Creator created us. Here we are. And then there's an exception to the love that tells me, okay, so the Creator is an extortionist. That's what you're saying. Because unless I abide by a certain set of rules, it's not unconditional love anymore. It's conditional. Let's talk a little bit about that as well. I mean, we could go on and on about the connectedness and so forth,
Yeah.
but let's talk about this concept, because it is as infinite as the word infinite. When we think of the universe, we say, oh yeah, it's not finite. There are no borders. It goes on forever. Okay, I can't wrap my brain around that. I mean, how big is forever? Yeah, well, so unconditional love is kind of the same thing, isn't it?
Yes, and I really feel like we need to have many episodes because I truly feel like one concept could take at least an hour at least. But
We may do that. We just
I
might
would
do that.
look, I would love to because some of your questions are quite three-dimensional, which is awesome, right? Because like oftentimes I'm on podcasts of people that are kind of awakened, understand all this, um, and we are speaking all like the same lingo. This is more of the 3D, and it's really going to reach people to break their barrier. And really, it's all about pushing your barrier, which that's where the resistance happens. Um, Unconditional love, we don't know what unconditional love. I felt what unconditional love is, and I live in an unconditional loving way. And if I describe to you how I live, like some of your audience will turn this thing off because
Okay.
it's so powerful.
Hmm.
We think we know what love is, and we've scratched the surface. Unconditional love is truly embodying the idea of integration, because love is really like like the glue that integrates all of us, and the glue that holds all of the universe, because everything that we see is a reflection from our heart. We're the projector, we are the creator. Everything out there is an illusion because it's coming it's like an actual like projector as you're watching like TV, right? And there's like you have the box that's kind of emanating the light on the wall, and then you see the whole movie on the wall. Well, like the movie's not happening on the wall; it's coming from the projector. Our hearts are the projector. And look, when we talk about Bible, when we talk about, and I grew up Christian Orthodox. My mom was Maronite. We're Lebanese. We moved to the U.S. when I was 15 years old. So I know like the whole Christian thing. And I was very like entrenched in it because I didn't know any better. And I did not listen to my own intuition. I just followed what people did. I followed what the Bible did. I followed what like the church did. And there's a lot of beauty in it. There's a lot of beautiful expressions and like beautiful like concepts, but they are limited. And the whole fear tactic, that like never worked with me because look, fear tactic keeps you in a box. If you do this, you go to hell. You do this, you go to heaven. Well, you are creating hell and you are creating heaven, and both are valid realities, and both are created by God, which is you, right? We always like seek for Mother Mary outside of us, or Jesus outside of us, or Buddha, or all of the ascended masters. We're always seeking outside of our hearts. Although we're speaking and we think we're speaking from the inside, but we're not. We're so trained to think we're so separate that everything's outside of us, when everything's literally inside of us. And in our heart is the portal for everything. So, and now I'm kind of forgetting your question, but I'm getting the grander concept. What was specifically the question that we discussed?
We were talking about understanding, a better understanding of unconditional love. I mean, I can put it in this context that maybe in Genesis at the beginning, when God created man and then created woman, and you stop there, unconditional love. He created these two beings to live in this garden and just flourish. And then as you start reading further and you start reading about the various other characters that do come along, oh, I don't know, we start with Cain and Abel. We could move into some of the other characters like Moses or Noah and so on and so forth. Job, and the list goes on. And it's like, okay, now it's conditional, because Job, for example, he could have turned on God, said, heck with this. It's not worth it. Then we go into the New Testament, and all of a sudden we start seeing and hearing about this, and I call them the new law that basically the old covenant, for example, that a contract, it was signed, sealed, and delivered. It's done. It's complete. And now there's a new law, a new covenant, a new contract. And it is love your neighbor as yourself. Love is the new law, and it is unconditional. But then again, you get into that exception to the rule and so forth and so on. So that was sort of comparing the old with the new in that context, but helping us to understand that even though it is a concept like infinity that we would have a hard time processing in the brain, if we go to the heart, then we may not understand. And again, our words are so limiting, as you've already stated, but in our heart, we would know. We wouldn't believe, but we would know at the heart level.
I'm so happy you said that, because like the word knowingness is so strong. And like when you know, like you don't need the brain to be involved anymore, because it's an absolute knowingness. This is how I connected like with the praying mantis. Like the whole world can come here. Creation can come here and then tell me you're crazy, what you experience is not real. It doesn't matter. I know what I experienced because I felt it. It was absolute knowingness. And this is what your heart does. And now I have chills all over my body again.
Once again,
this is what your heart does. But we're not trained to go in the heart. We're trained to think about the heart like from an intellectual way. Oh, I love you and he loves you, and love, 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 love. Very surface level and out there, not here, not emanating from here. Even the text, all the Bible and stuff, they make and look, the Bible was created by human or humans in different culture, different customs, different expansion, different ascension levels. So if we're really going to put our stock into these words and all these pages, that's already like limited, like to begin with. Who wrote it? And how many times has it been translated or misunderstood?
Hmm.
Look, I can tell you one story right now, and like you can recount it to like someone else in like 3 minutes, and it will have a few like different variations of like what I said. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
that's just a very simple thing.
Yeah.
Add many years, add many cultures, and many languages, add translations, and the whole thing gets lost,
Yeah.
right? But also part of it, even if we think of of the Bible like from a like much grander concept. What did it create? Yes, it may have created limitation, but through the idea of those limitations, we get to experience a new lens and a new facet of experiencing how divine we are. So like we may go into the abyss of the darkness and of limitation, but at one point we're going to have to go back up and rediscover our power. So if you begin seeing it from a very expanded view, that I'm not judging the Bible, that I'm not judging all of the people and all of the cultures that wrote the Bible, and I see that as one facet and one experience of the infinite, then your whole thing shifts. And like
Hmm.
now you're seeing it, there is something to learn from each facet. And look, 1 inch or one like semi, I don't know, I guess micro. If if I am looking at you like this way, I have like one experience. If I go like literally like a micro inch, I'm seeing a different world. If I go like a
Hmm.
micro inch, different world. I'm like the same thing with experiences, like the same thing with words. But like this is where you begin re-empowering yourself and becoming less disempowered, because everything is about disempowerment. Our whole paradigm has been created to allow us to feel the illusion that I'm disempowered, that everything is out there, not here, to be able to rediscover the here, the heart, to be able to see us as being re-empowered. And once you connect like with your heart, and like once you connect that you are like a powerful being, and everybody else out there, from humans to animals to the water to the planets to wind to sun to rivers to whatever, to the rose to rocks, everything has consciousness. When you begin seeing all as being truly divine, and they're just wearing costumes to experience, and I'm getting chills again, I get a lot of chills when there's a lot of confirmation, like for your audience, and I'm not insane and crazy, but even if they think I'm insane and crazy, that's totally fine, because that's my
Okay.
facet.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally cool. I own it 100%. And I also like respect their journey and like their view, because the way that they are seeing me now and they're understanding it, that's their facet and that's their journey to re-empower themselves whenever that happens, right? So I don't ever judge anyone. I truly, and this is what unconditional love is: when you honor every person's journey, when you honor every human's journey and the choices they made and the decisions with the limited knowledge that they have on their path, right?
Hmm.
The idea of war, the idea of like serial killers, the idea of all this politics, the left, the right, the idea of like, kids dying, of like perpetrators. Like to me, I see them all as divine beings. And actually, I see the people that have placed the robe on or like the costume on to play the tough role of being the perpetrator. If it's Hitler, I don't know, if it's like a serial killer,
Yeah.
and the kids or the and the victims that kind of played a huge part in that co-creation. Those beings are more ascended than like we are, because the fact they decided like to come as a soul on this planet and put that costume on takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
But all of that is being created to allow, again, and I'm getting chills again, to allow our hearts to expand, to really allow us to push our limit of what unconditional love is,
Yeah.
and really be compassionate and open up our hearts even beyond than we think that we know and oh my God, like this is crazy. And like we think, you see, we think that we know what in love is. We have
Yeah.
no idea. We've scratched the surface of the idea of in love, because it's a frequency of integration.
Hmm.
But when you become in love with everything and honor everybody's journey and see everybody as empowered and see yourself as empowered, your whole paradigm shifts. And now you're thinking on a frequency and vibration. Oh my God, it's like I'm like a chicken
Just
right
keeps
now.
coming, doesn't it?
I know. And look, I'm just proving, because I'm kind of channeling.
Yeah.
When we begin living on that frequency, then you shift yourself to a new parallel earth where everything is really vibrating on that frequency.
Yeah.
But again, with no judgment on the version of you that's still living the other parallel life that feels disempowered. That's what unconditional love is. When you honor everybody's journey, you see everybody as being empowered and see yourself as empowered, and you become living. You really like live in a world of magic where you know you're the creator. Like today, like you can choose to live a high positive life, and tomorrow you can choose to live the abyss, and that's all okay. And you can just toggle back and forth, toggle. And through each experience, you're expanding, because how else the soul truly expands? The soul does not only expand if it's experiencing always good, and roses and whatever, or if it's experiencing like darkness, right? So the whole spectrum of judgment, like the bad, the good, and the neutral, was created by us through our limited knowledge of the infinite, because we cannot comprehend like what the infinite is. And you're absolutely right. What you said earlier, the infinite continues on and on and on. It's a creation and recreation, a form of experience, and it continues. There's no destination. The destination is right now. The destination is in your heart. The destination really is owning every choice that you made, every decision, and not judging yourself. That's the other thing. We have been so brainwashed, and it is part of the matrix, to judge self, of course, and judge others. But let's begin with self, because that's where our heart is. The more you judge yourself, the more you separate. You create distance from you and every decision that you made, every choice. You got to be able to reconcile and love every part of you, every version of you that has made all these decisions on the spectrum of judgment, because creation, like the mantis being said, never ever judges. It doesn't exist in their realm. It's all experiential, and it's all for the soul's expansion. And this is how the whole, all beings like expand through these experiences, right? So there's judgment and like there's unconditional love. Those two are key to really like shifting your life. And self-love even is a much stronger key than the rest, because we're not taught to self-love each other.
Yeah.
If you love yourself, that's selfish. Why? It's designed. We have been brainwashed to think that it's selfish, to keep the love out there and not go within. Because the moment you experience as a human unconditional love for you and all of the decisions that you made and all of the versions, then you're emanating, and the frequency and vibration is of integration. And from that point, you are truly like being able to love others and like not judge them. And as you do that, literally you become consciousness. You become the all, you become the infinite. But of course, the government is not going to tell you this. The institutions are not going to tell you this, because they want to keep you separate. And that's okay. Even me like saying that, I honor that journey, because that's a journey. And so this is where you go from layer to another layer of like non-judgments, and you challenge yourself not to judge. And when you do that, I swear to you, the audience will shift. Magic will begin happening. Magic. They become gods. They become... And look, when you have power, you don't need to exert power, because you are already power.
Right.
People exert power because they're really feeling the non-power. They're feeling weak. It's this whole psychology trip, So anyhow, I kind of diverted a bit, but it's a lot of
good stuff. Toni Ghazi is my guest, and we're talking about a wide variety of subjects. He is a channeler, and he's channeling, and his messages are from a diverse array of beings. Are you ready for this list, folks? Sit down and take this in. The Praying Mantis, Arcturians, Council of Light, and I hope I'm pronouncing this one right, Taygetans, the Gray Aliens, Angels, Ganesh, Mother of Gaia, Seven Sisters of the Pleiades, Magic, Leprechauns, my favorite, especially from Ireland, the Dream Weavers, I've heard of them, Sacred Geometry, as well as Angels, Collective Light Practices, and the future self-name Osman, as well as concepts like, and this is one that in my field of broadcasting, we don't like, but it's important. It is very important, and that is silence and void. Now, this I do like. Sound. And then there's infinity, shadow, and the dark. And these messages aim to uplift humanity and assist individuals in living a life of alignment and joy. And you made a comment just a few moments ago about plugging in. And the reality is that we have never been plugged. It is our awareness that we are, using the term, that we are plugged in, that is the key, not that we need to get plugged in. We've always been. We've always been connected. One of the things that I talk about on this program, normally I mention this at the front end of the program, is how we ask people to participate in what I've referred to as the decade, started out with the year 2020, the decade of perfect vision, where we ask people to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still small voice. Now, for me, I received an audible voice when my eldest sister, passed away 2 years ago, basically just saying, "Oh, Richard, everything is okay. Everything's good." But my father, I don't hear. I get impressions. Now, that leads me into the subject, not just of that inner life that we all need to develop, whether you call it meditation, whether you call it prayer, whatever you call it. It leads me from there to the concept that transcends language. Telepathy, as we call it telepathy. And my we'll call it rudimentary understanding is telepathy would be not the transmission, if you will, of words, but of images. And that I'm going to send you an image of where I live. Because if I tried to describe it, it would be so incomplete. But if I can show you, at least from that visual standpoint, and maybe even I could incorporate into it the textures of the dry golden grasses and the aroma of the cut grasses and this and that and the other thing, and the sounds of the deer and the birds and so on and so on. If I can transmit those concepts, I'd like to think that there would be a greater understanding. Ergo, we go back to the concept of, we'll use the term self-judgment, where if I were to ask the question of a teacher, and I did have to ask this question. I went through a process where I had to recognize that this particular individual who was in the Matrix was a consternation to me. And I had to first acknowledge and verbalize out loud, "Teacher, thank you for teaching me how not to be." But then I had to go to the next level, and this is where I would like to start. What is it that you are so afraid of that makes you behave this way, that I must acknowledge you as a teacher that's teaching me not to be that way? And that's kind of where, and it's like, I'm not asking you to change. God, heck no, I don't want you to change. I just want to understand. Now, if I could receive the telepathic images of why, then, and I'm sure you've seen this not only working with people, but also there have been television programs and movies about this, where there's the initial conflict in the first 20 minutes, maybe the first hour of the movie. And then all of a sudden they sit down and they start dialoguing and talking about, yeah, well, this is my story. Da, 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 da. And the person listening, who's been in conflict with this person, oh, I understand now. Okay. And they start having empathy. And they start releasing in my case, that consternation, if you will. And it's like, okay, I get it. I get it. I can appreciate what you went through, because I may have had something similar in my childhood or adolescence, et cetera, et cetera. Do you think that's where we are headed? Maybe that our evolution is heading in that direction if we would but recognize that we have always been plugged in.
100%. And it's through, they always say, it's through your infinite power of being the creator that you create the illusion of this empowerment. Because if you were truly unplugged, how can you create your own reality to begin with? If you're unplugged, you're unplugged, you're off. This is where it's a bit of a, like this is where the illusion comes in. It's you're creating this because you're so powerful that you're able to create the illusion that you are disempowered. And through the disempowerment, you're rediscovering yourself as being that powerful being. But it's funny that you tap into the idea of dialoguing like with a person where like you both have opposing views. And listen, we create stories in our mind what the other person is thinking to begin with, and our judgments begin from our stories that we created and not from the story of that source that's experiencing X, Y, and Z. This is why when you sit in dialogue and like, yes, for the first 10 minutes, you may like butt heads, but then after that, you may come to an understanding or at least an expanded view of what he or she like went through. Then you're like, wow, he's human. Oh, like he has insecurities. Oh, he has blood. Oh, he experienced like pain like me. Then you remember that he is you and he is like you to begin with, which he was like you to begin with, but somehow you created the illusion that he's very different than me and he's not like me.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tap into the spirits now. When we begin dialoguing, when we begin expanding our world, we begin having dialogue with actual consciousness, and the consciousness will give us that understanding the same way where like the two people are speaking to each other, and then they begin understanding each world, and then they merge together as one. That also happens on a more like consciousness level, right? So this is where we need to begin, in a sense, deconstructing, and this is where it pushes people's boundaries, to have to like reboot your system. And everything you thought you believed in, you begin from point zero. Good luck with that sometimes, because it's like, oh my God, like, what do you mean? I think I know myself. I am 44 years old, and I've lived like for the past 44 years like this way. Are you asking me to stop like believe? Yes, I'm asking you to begin from point zero and open up your mind that everything is possible, and allow feeling and thinking from your heart. And oftentimes we believe other people's stories. That's the other thing. The books, the Bibles. Well, like, where's your voice? Like, where's your discernment? Where's your knowingness that's already like within you, right? So we have to begin and look, like, you don't have to like deconstruct everything about you, but begin the process of deconstructing and allowing your mind to push a bit further and get more information in, versus only to believe the information that was seeped into your mind by the movies, by the media, by the articles, by your experiences, right? Allow others in, expand your mind. And this is how spiritual expansion begin, when you begin trying to understand, I guess, humans, right? Like before you get to UFOs, before you get to aliens, before you get to all these beings, you have to begin like with humanity, and through that then you push further beyond humanity. Then you begin thinking that plants are alive, like plants have consciousness, animals have consciousness, right? We even have humans these days that think animals are like subpar, or even plants are subpar, right? And all is okay, because that's all part of the journey, right? So really, to become more spiritual, to become more expanded, you have to look within, into your own operating system. Because everything is really emanating from you to begin with. Everything outside of you is just a projection, because you're the projector. But we're not taught that we're the projector. We're not taught you're gods. We're not taught you are divine. We are taught you're subpar. We are taught you are powerless. You are taught to judge. If you do this, you're good. If you do this, is bad. So that keeps us down and away from our heart. So that's where the real work begins: self-love and self-work and self-knowing who you are. And then you face yourself like for the first time. And like mirror work is a really good work, when you stand like in front of the mirror and like talk to yourself and say, I'm going to begin deconstructing everything I've known. And you get to the point, and it's funny that like you mentioned, the void and then like silence, as like you were reading the bio, Once you get to that point, you have another kind of like epiphany, but a traumatizing like point where you're like, wow, I really don't know myself. And
Yeah.
then you freak out. And I'm getting chills again right now.
Hmm.
You freak out because now you're like, who am I? I thought I knew myself, but now I don't. Like, where does that like put you? But that's beautiful because then you are the painter of your own universe.
Yeah.
Then and I'm getting chills again. You begin painting. You begin painting your own life from an empowered state and not a disempowered state. And that
Yeah.
creates magic.
Yeah.
But it takes some work to go within. And then oftentimes you don't know who you are and you get lost into the unknowingness of who you are and you freak out. But
Yeah.
that's all part of the journey.
I think part of the another analogy that was used with me was that you wrote the script and
Yeah.
you can rewrite it. You can change it. The contract that we may have actually filled out and signed when before we came into this lifetime is not something that is, written in concrete, as the analogy goes. That
Yeah.
it's fluid. If you want to leave the contract as is and just keep going along, that's fine. That's entirely up to you. But if you want to go a different direction for whatever the reason, you just rewrite the script because it's
Totally.
your script.
100%. And look, it sounds so easier than like you think because we've been so brainwashed that we're not powerful. That like the power is out there. That it's Jesus or Mother Mary or Buddha or Krishna or all these deities or all these
Yeah.
saints or whatever. Outside forces are causing this to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a victim, I'm a victim, I'm a victim. So brainwashed that even if you tell people that you are a divine being and you are powerful, they don't believe it. And it's like so ironic because everybody wants to be powerful. Everybody, and then everybody wants to change their life within their own power, but they've been so conditioned that they're so like disempowered, they're not even hearing the reality that they are powerful. Like it's right in your face. It's with you have the keys to the kingdom. It's within you.
Mm.
So this is
Yeah.
how this empowered, like layer after layer after layer. So you have to break through all these layers,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know. But yeah,
We talked also about the shadow and the darkness, and that's part of it too. And that is that we need to, and this goes back to the concepts we were talking earlier about self-love and judgment, and letting go of the judgment and recognizing that just like every 24-hour period has a light period and a dark period, we also have a light side and a dark side. And 99% of the time, we don't want to recognize, let alone look at the dark side. Some would say more the shadow side,
sure.
because the shadow side basically is that you have, in a manner of speaking, you have your back to the light, if you will,
Yes.
and so forth. So to me, it's fascinating to try to help people to recognize that, hey, I am who I am because of all of the choices that I've made, not just a select few. And that you've heard this, I'm sure, many times about regret, that it's a wasted emotion, if you will, because what you are saying with regret is, if only I could go back and do that differently. Yeah. And if you could, you wouldn't be who you are today. Um, we've all done things and we've learned from them, and they're not sins. They're not bad. They're just life experiences, life lessons. We need to expand our awareness.
But they expand you. They are ascended masters. The praying mantis, like being said, every decision and choice you made is an ascended mastery because through it you expand. But listen, we've been so taught to feel shame, to feel guilt, to feel regret, to keep you separate. That's
Mhm.
all part of the matrix. It's
Yeah.
all designed specifically to keep you in that, right?
Yeah.
Because of course, like you regret something because you like wish you did it differently, and immediately you separated yourself. You're saying, "I'm not gonna like take responsibility for this. This is not me. No way on earth. This is me. I'm here always." And of course, you always stay here, and you have distance.
Yeah.
When you merge them and redefine what regret is, redefine the choices at ascended mastery, even if you get cancer or if, or all these diseases are teaching you something, and if you see it that it's an ascended master allowing me to teach something, you'll go through the experience with less resistance, and you'll miraculously heal yourself overnight because you've integrated that part of it and you're not resisting it. When you like resist something, again, you're creating distance. The more you resist, the more you're playing that loop
Hmm.
of cancer, all of these like diseases. But we're not taught to embrace everything.
You
We're
know,
not
you,
taught.
yeah, you've raised
Yeah,
something that I want to touch on too, healing,
yeah,
in terms of not resisting. Excuse me, my wife and I, we are both Reiki masters. And in the lessons, in the classes that we went through, they were always telling us that you are a conduit of the energy. And when you send that energy out to an individual or a situation, which I love that you can send it to a situation,
yeah.
um, you are not sending it out with an intention on your part other than to send it out. And so when we talk about healing, I use this example. After we had our mastery certification, sharing with my mother and father, and they shared with us about my father's brother who had cancer. He lived in, I want to say, I think it was Miami, Arizona. So we said, well, we'd like to do an absentee healing. So they gave us a picture of him. We went home and we did an absentee healing. And following the funeral, my mother told us what happened. So, oh, yeah. After you sent that, a few days later, he got really angry and threw his medications across the room, got into his wheelchair, wheeled across their ranch, their compound, to his son's house to have a time of closure, I'm guessing. And shortly after, he passed. And it's like, okay, so we need to redefine what either need to redefine what healing is, or we need to find another word for it, because there would be those who would say, well, but you didn't heal him with the energy you sent. And it's like, well, but that wasn't the intent. At least it wasn't the intent in terms of quote unquote reversing and or curing the cancer.
Yeah.
The healing, I think that maybe we're talking about, and this where the definition would change, is it's not external healing. It's internal.
Yes, and we can never, ever, ever heal others. We heal ourselves.
Mhm.
When we give the healing energy, like when you do Reiki, like when I channel, when we do, like all of these like modalities, they're really a permission slip for the person that has that disease to match that frequency of the healed state. So we just give them the example or like the blueprint of this is how like you need to be in the heal state. And if they choose to, then they can heal themselves. But it begins with the belief system that I'm powerful enough to heal myself, which we're not. We are so disempowered. You got to take this oil, you have to take these pills, you have to go to the doctor, you have to do this. I mean, of course, like there are some where you have to go to the doctor if you break your leg or whatever. But
Sure.
even depending on your belief system, if you know that you are divine to begin with, you can restructure those things. But also, one like layer like further, like so like let's assume you believe that like you can heal yourself. The other aspect is knowing that what occurred to you really is an ascended master to teach you
Mhm.
something. So you have to accept with love and with compassion and integration that disease or that condition. That's when the true healing happens, because you can only heal yourself if you bring every piece back to your heart.
Mhm.
Because like the heart is like a volcano, this molten lava where it's like you bring it back to your heart and you can melt it and like recreate it into something different. But
Mhm.
if you don't bring it and you always like judging and saying, why did cancer happen to me? Why did I break my leg? Why do I have X, Y, and Z immune disorder disease, or just whatever, what is coming from the outside in? You're not taking responsibility and ownership that I created it on a higher conscious level as a divine being to teach myself something. right?
Mm.
You create that distance. The moment you bring it in and take ownership, literally the heart will melt it away. And through your power and belief system that I can heal it, you literally restructure it into something beautiful.
You
And the
know,
whole journey of
yeah.
like cancer, right? It could be cut in half or even in a day. I mean, and I'm getting chills again because we are that powerful, but we're not taught we are. So there's all these layers of reintegrating and believing
Hmm.
that the key is really within us. Like it's
Yeah.
really within us. It's that close.
Yeah. And
But we
it's interesting too, because when we talk about the elements that are in the matrix, and we'll use that term,
sure.
um, that are, shall we say, contrary to who and what we really, really are. Okay. And that's important. Uh, they are there to, I think you made the reference to the fact that they are avatars, as in a sense, that are there to reveal to us that we don't have to stay there. We can, but we don't have to. That's what they're there to teach us. Um, I had my. It's interesting how there have been people who have studied the human body and all of the various parts therein, the organs and so forth, and they've connected them to certain emotions and so on and so forth, and that the liver and the gallbladder, for example, are like having to do with anger
Sure.
and frustration. And I remember prior to my having my gallbladder removed, when I would, I'm just say, spill a glass of milk, I, I was just really, and I would go on for a little while, and then I would clean it up, and then it would dissipate. And I noticed after I had my gallbladder removed, it would be more of that agitation for like, oh, I don't know, 1, 2, maybe 3 seconds, and then I'd laugh. And it's just really fascinating how the different conditions that we find ourselves, we'll call it labeled with. I remember when I was diagnosed with high blood pressure, and I shared this with my mother, and she says, well, don't worry about it. It runs in the family. It's like, well, I don't care. I don't want it. Let the family keep it. I don't want it. You know, um, obviously, it's there for a reason. High blood sugar, dealing with that as well. Well, it's there for a reason. And so now it's up to me to figure out why it's there. What is it trying to teach me? And the list goes on, maybe even in terms of maybe where you live. I mean, I moved from Phoenix, Arizona, one of the hottest places in the summertime, to Santa Barbara, where I had to be close to the ocean.
Yep.
I didn't know that it would be Santa Barbara. It could have been anywhere along the coast for all I knew, but
Yep.
here I am. Um, it could be the job that we do. That's another thing we might talk about as well in terms of finding our life's purpose.
Oh,
Now, for you, I'm sure, and we'll talk about this too. I would love to have you share with us. For me, my father told me many years ago, and I'd already been in broadcasting for quite a number of years. He says, find a job you love doing because you're going to be doing it for a long time. Don't get stuck like me. Well, he didn't stay stuck. He went back to college and he got his computer programming degree and so forth. I, on the other hand, found myself basically in the right place at the right time, pretty much throughout my entire career, 45 years. I'm 64. And I've been in this since I was 19, but I was curious about it to some degree even before then, because my father, who also repaired appliances, he had this reel to reel and a turntable, and I had these radios and this and that, and then a cassette recorder and so forth. And I just kind of play around with it. And that art, that report you have to write, usually it's in eighth grade, what you want to be when you grow up.
yes.
Well, in eighth grade, I actually wrote my paper on being in broadcasting. I wish I still had it. It'd be kind of cool to have. But I interviewed a local personality in Phoenix, and I have a picture of he and I standing side by side. My father took, and I interviewed him. He was on one of these kids shows in Phoenix, and he played multiple different characters. Well, the synchronicity of the universe is such that it was some years later. I wanted to work for this one news talk station. It was the #1 station in Phoenix at the time. His name was Pat McMahon. He was on the air there, along with another gentleman who was my childhood DJ that I listened to on a music station. He also worked there. I had the opportunity, and I can't remember how long I worked there, several months, maybe half a year, something like that. And I can now say, oh, I got to work with these guys. And like I said, it seems like the progression in one's life. Do you see many people who don't recognize those steps that the universe kind of puts in front of them and says, hey, this is the direction you want to go because, well, but the family's been doing this for generations, and so I need to carry on the legacy and blah, 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 or whatever the other reasons are.
100%. Listen, you were lucky enough to be aware and like for your family, like to allow you like to do, I guess, what you love since you were a child. Because when we're kids, we're not, look, when we're born, like we're born into the infinite. We have no preconceived notion how life is. We're a blank slate where the infinite is there and everything is possible. But then you become 1 year old, and then you become 2 and 3 and 4, and then you go to school, and then like your parents say do this, and then your world shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. And then like you get to a stage where you may like, you know, if like you love art or you love music, or if you want to do this, and of course mom and dad say no, you have to be an architect or a doctor, or I don't know what else, right? You get pulled out of your passion, but you knew your passion as a child, and like somehow like your parents, you know, allowed you to do it. This is why you are doing it to this day, and you've been enjoying it, because when it comes from the heart and you're not thinking about it, it's your life force. But even that, through this lifetime and through this one path, you are also capable and able and to do all other versions of who you are. You may add other things on the side that bring you, it's not just one. We're not one identity. So they always tell me, the Praying Mantis, tell people they're not one identity, because when you condition yourself that this or that, then you're only experiencing that. When you're a multidimensional being, and enjoy everything. You could be a doctor today and like leave doctoring and like become an architect the next day or whatever, or an artist or like swimmer. You're everything, you're all of it, but we're not taught to do that, right? So I'm Lebanese and I'm from the Middle East. I don't remember like what I wanted to be like when I was a kid, but I know clearly that my parents wanted me an engineer and do this, and I went to school to be an engineer, and I hated every bit of it, and I'm not an engineer. Like it's not who I am, and I didn't care for that, like, you know what I mean? But this is how your like your world becomes limited. But I'm a realtor, and I've been selling real estate, I don't know, for 10 or for like, I don't know, like 15 years maybe.
Well,
and I still do that.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you that maybe I'll need to touch base with you, because my wife and I are wanting to move from Santa Barbara, but I want to stay close to the ocean, but when we want to move further north. Although the preference, the #1 location where I would love to move, Ireland. We've been there twice, and it's been over 20 years. And I love the country and the people, and would love to do that. So maybe we'll talk. I definitely
we have connections all over the world. Absolutely. I was born on St. Patrick's Day, by the way.
Oh, wonderful!
March 17th. So they call me Arab Irish sometimes as a joke.
Well, I'll tell you that unfortunately we have to wrap things up here, because our time is limited. But I definitely want to have you back. I want to continue this conversation and go into these many, many different directions. My very special guest here on the program, Toni Ghazi, ToniGhazi.com, ToniGhazi.com. We'll be connected and linked to that, and hope that you folks will check out the work that he's doing and connect with him. I do have 3 final questions that I do ask all of my guests before I let them go at the end of every program, and I'm going to ask you those questions here in just a moment. But first, I want to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story: New Paradigms for a New World, where we are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m. for our special edition of Tell Me Your Story, and then Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m. following the news. And we stream live at those times at richarddugan.com. Podcasts are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio. We're also on YouTube, and we hope that you'll subscribe and click notifications, so when I post a new conversation, you will be able to tune in, listen in, and have a great time, as I always do with these programs. We ask that if you can support the work that we're doing financially, we would be so gratefully appreciative. We have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And all you have to do when they ask you, to whom are you sending? The email address you want to put in there is richard@richarddugan.com. That's richard@richarddugan.com. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, during this, the decade of perfect vision, please take the time to go within and listen to that still small voice. With all of that, we go to our final three questions for our very special guest. And this won't be the final program because we're going to have you back to continue this conversation. First question, though, is who is Toni Ghazi?
Oh my goodness, that's a very long answer. Okay, Toni Ghazi is a divine being, a reflection of who you actually are. I'm not any, and I'm getting chills again. I'm not any extra special than anyone else. Everything you hear from all these people on your show and everybody that you see there is a reflection of who you are. You are pure love. You are pure light. You are divine gods. That's it.
All right. What gets you up in the morning?
Oh my God. Oh my goodness. Miracles, magic, and magnificence. Just like those three words, I speak every day. Just life, just being alive, just knowing that I'm connected, and the love, really, the love. I love everybody. I love everything. I love every human, every animal, every planet, I'm a big heart on this planet, and just expressing this love and like finding this like new me is truly my drive these days. And loving me. I'm learning to do that. I didn't love myself for 43 years. It just began last year. Like self-love is big for me. I give time, I give money, I give effort, I give everything all the time. Never give myself anything. And I'm learning to love myself.
And finally, what was your best day?
What was my best day? Oh my goodness. I want to say the day that I awoke when I realized, and like this happened during COVID, when I realized the world that I thought it is, it's not, and that I am powerful enough to change everything within it.
Thank you so much for joining us on the program. I really do appreciate it. And I definitely would like to have you back to continue this conversation because this is fascinating. And I'd like to learn more about what the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a lot of topics to cover, and I mean, we could have thousands of episodes.
Absolutely.
Just so thank you for having me here. And of course, thank you for your audience for being open and receptive. And if some of these topics are a bit hard for you to like to absorb, it's okay to turn the channel off and then come back maybe like another day. So I honor your journey. I honor your path. I honor where you are. You are a divine being. You are a beautiful light. You are love. I'm getting chills again. Look, you are absolute love. You are a bubble of love. Just tap into your heart and tap into who you are, because you are God to begin with.
Well, again, I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to Lal. Jeanette, I am still listening. Dad, continue to be happy. I am. Smokey, I will see you on the other side. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.